Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Continuing with the guidelines of the work presented in CIM 2009 in Santiago, Chile, the fundamentals of recoverable resources model, the authors decided to reinforce the concept of going back to the basis, and based on that they did this work, the balanced scorecard as management tool in the model of retrievable resources to obtain efficiency in the process of leadership in an exploration project. The balanced scorecard or the dashboard in the car indicates the speed at which I go in the car, how much fuel I have, how many revolutions the engine is running at, and so on. It gives relevant information for the operation of the vehicle. The question is how I will be able to manage an exploration project. Do I have information available that could give me relevant information of the critical performance items? Well, for our presentation, we have the following contents: introduction, objectives, processes, and conclusions. Regarding the introduction, the fundamentals of the model of retrievable resources. Nobody can say that the structure is stronger than the fundamentals or basis or the foundations. The foundation of the reserves model is the hard data, the sampling, and the other pillar is the geological model, the geological interpretation. The subjective area is given by the expertise of the expert. And through geostatistics and interpolation, I define a model of resources and reserves. So the synthesis of the process is the following. If the processes or if the project is successful, we can have recoverable resources and to give an economic value in the market, looking for investors following the different international standards such as the Canadian one, JORC, or the Canadian ones, 4301. One of the pillars of is sampling. A sample is representative through diamond drilling with different technical processes in terms of geotechniques, density sampling, and logging that will permit or allow a geological interpretation and the definition of a geological model. Based on that, I will see the estimation domains based on analytical data with the corresponding QA, QC with an auditable database to make the exploratory analysis of the data. With that, I will determine estimation domains and will define the resources and reserves model. The sampling process, the samples must provide geological information. The sampling is made to estimate resources and reserves. The samples will be collected in enough amount and quality. All samples show errors, and the errors are additive. Bias is additive. All the procedures, protocols for sampling, preparation, and analysis must be established by writing, and the QA QC system must be applied. We must have duplicate samples for controlling the accuracy and a blank sample to control contamination. The geological model. The geological model must be simple and practical. If there are units that behave similarly from the viewpoint of lithology, we must have unified systems. We must handle the collected information adequately. We must determine and model the mineralization control. We make the use and interpretation of field observations. We must predict the tonnage and grade extracted in a single operation. All the geological interpretation must be made with pen and paper. We must make an interpretation of the different parts of the modeling, and therefore we look for a consistency in interpretation. Graphically, what I'm saying is that we start with the detailed mapping. The geological interpretations are based on the hard data from the drilling made in a grid of 50 meters, the geological sections, then the interpretation and construction of 3D solids. We have a topography, drill holes, the 3D models, and through an interpolation method, ordinary kriging, we make the interpretation, and through software, we generate the economic pit that is later optimized with a geotechnical model based on the inter-ramp angles, creating an open pit mine. What I'm saying is that we have the identified target, the drilling, the interpretation with the solids, and the conceptual model, and the economic pit finally. The authors wondered several things to be able to see which are the key aspects of the process. How can we generate value? How can we go back to the basis? Which solution can we propose? The information management, the Department of Geology and Exploration, uses relevant information necessary for the control management of the exploration project. Sometimes the management and use of information create problems in decision making because the amount of information is excessive and it doesn't arrive on time and adequately. The information sometimes is dispersed and disordered. The process generates excessive information, generating confusion. We don't understand the relationship between the variables, so we can't identify them and we can't understand the fundamentals of the process. The objectives of the process. It is important to emphasize that the balanced scorecard to optimize it, and we must have something that is applicable and that can be optimized, and this has been optimized in the Geology and Exploration Department of Alumbrera, and it continues being optimized. And the important issue is to be able to understand the process. This is a process where we identify variables that are the ones that make the difference in the process. In function of these identified variables, we have indicators to define the objectives. The objectives to introduce the concept of a balanced scorecard among the different working teams, to establish the mission, vision, and strategy, to define clear expectations, monitoring and measurement of the process, alignment of the staff, establish strategy to integrate and explain the process and to create competitive advantages through key or core competencies. For that, we must know what is being done well, what is not being done well, and what can be done differently, and to measure continuous improvement. The changes are difficult to be introduced. If one person is involved, or if more than one person is involved, because we're talking about the different mentalities. So the idea is not to implement the balanced scorecard as such, but the idea is to optimize it and to execute the model to cover all our needs. So the tool must be an operational, useful, simple and practical tool. And for that, we must all participate and understand the process. If we participate as a team, we look the sense of belonging from things. The balanced scorecard must create a culture of discussion about the different performance indicators, and this discussion and interaction creates an effective learning. That learning will allow me to have a permanent care of the ones who are empowered, the desire to be involved in the project, and also to transmit the know-how to practice the competencies or skills. Summing up, what we're looking for with the balanced scorecard is to optimize a productive process, to have learning in the organization, implementation of strategy and value creation, the synergy of the people, the ideas of the people, the innovation, development, leadership, proactivity to obtain the results aligned with the strategic objectives. The theoretical framework of the balanced scorecard is mainly given by the mission and the vision, where we are and where we want to go, surrounded by the different perspectives, the perspectives for learning, for internal processes, perspectives for clients, and financial perspectives. These four items that contribute to fulfill the long-term strategic objectives, considering also the short-term. The strategic map, the diagram, the cause-effect diagram. The idea is to have a learning base with our human capital to reinforce the skills and to create effective learning. We must work in internal processes in order to understand them, to optimize them, and improve them. We must add social and environmental value to obtain further economic value. There will be an effective communication, and we will maximize benefits. How? Generating value, improving the NPV, and allowing the resources to be assets of the company. The matrix for the balanced scorecard. Here we have the four perspectives of the different strategic objectives that induce to specific actions. How we are going to achieve those strategic objectives, in other words. The action plan must be defined and must be fed back permanently with an update in order to fulfill objectives. Then we have the final balanced scorecard, where we must indicate what we observed, what is under what, and which are the actions to be made. This is telling me which is the diagnosis, monitoring, and control through color bars in an Excel spreadsheet. This alert system as a traffic light will tell me which is the situation of exploration. Each type of light will indicate which are the levels and when a specific action must be carried out. The conclusions. I will improve and have improved the efficacy and efficiency. We have obtained better decision making. The decision with lack of information doesn't optimize the decision making. If we make wrong decisions, there's a cost for the company. The same happens when we don't make decisions. To reinforce and to learn the fundamentals of the process, we insist on this, knowing the business in order to know if what we offer is adequate or not. To have precise information in order to correct errors and not running risks, to achieve a better management control based on the different perspectives, to foster and motivate the teamwork to create strategic learning, developing skills and key competencies to define a dynamic process. This process will be fed back with relevant information, balanced information, integrated information in the medium and long term, because we will have factors that can be internal or external, because we're monitoring internal and external indexes in order to work proactively and not to deviate from the strategic objectives. To end, the measurement is the first step for control and improvement. If you cannot measure something, we don't understand it. If we don't understand it, we cannot control it. If we cannot control it, you can't improve it. Thank you.